Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier 10-time award-winning journalist. Top Latino was voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative, and certainly I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, because my level of honesty, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. That's right, folks, it's me, the generational talent, Fernando Uribe. Wishing you all a happy October. It's my favorite month of the year. The baseball playoffs are underway. The NFL is kicking into high gear. The NBA and NHL return later this month. And of course, my favorite holiday. That's right, folks. Halloween is later on this month. And of course, many of you enjoy it as well, along with apple picking and everything else that we enjoy during the autumn season. I hope you get to enjoy it as much as you can. There's always plenty to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, folks, let me give you a little context here about why this story is so significant. Now, 3 Jersey City police officers were let go of quite some time ago by Mayor Stephen Fulop and the city of Jersey City. But consequently, after a long, drawn-out legal battle, they actually are able to get back to work. So certainly the battles with the Civil Service Commission proved to be in their favor. Now, the officers who were terminated over off-duty cannabis use, again, which was overturned by the courts here in New Jersey, are finally back on the job, but the city will not allow them to carry their service weapons. Now, Omar Polanco, Nohan Mansour, and Mackenzie Riley were called Tuesday and told to report to work on Wednesday, and they were placed on pay status recently as of September the 20th. Now, Polanco was fired on March the 1st, 2023, Mansour on March 23rd, 2023, and Riley on August 25th, 2023. All 3 were placed on modified duty and are working in quote, office capacity, according to a city official. Now, according to city spokeswoman Kimberly Wallace Scaloni, quote, the officers were brought back in an office capacity where they don't have a firearm because federal law prohibits the city from facilitating use of a firearm to anyone that is positive for a Schedule I narcotic. It will avoid fines and maintain our policy of following the federal laws to avoid litigation for taxpayers. Now, Polanco, Mansour, and Riley are 3 of 5 police officers the city has fired for testing positive for cannabis usage, despite a state law that has made cannabis legal and another law that stated police officers cannot be disciplined in any way for off-duty cannabis use. Now, none of the 5 officers were accused of using cannabis on the job or being under the influence while working in uniform. Now, according to Joe Costellini, Jersey police officer and president of the POBA, hopefully this will be the last we hear about this saga. It goes on to say also, we would like to thank Mayor Stephen Fulop for putting these officers back to work during a time when recruiting and retaining law enforcement personnel is reaching a crisis point. Now, Mike Rubis, the officer's attorney, declined to comment on the matter. Now, the Civil Service Commission ruled that Jersey City is to reinstate all 3 officers, and a ruling pertaining to Polanco and Mansour set an August 25th deadline for the city or face a $100 a day fine for each officer. If held to order, Jersey City would owe approximately $5,000 in fines. Now, Jersey City has maintained that it must follow federal standards and guidelines under which marijuana is still classified as a controlled dangerous substance. Hence, city officials have said that numerous times in unsuccessful court cases, police officers who test positive cannot carry a gun. Now, the city's position is in direct opposition to the state's CREAMM, the Cannabis Regulatory Enforcement Assistant and Marketplace Modernization Act, which explicitly states law enforcement officers cannot be fired or disciplined for using cannabis while off duty, as long as they are not under the influence while on the job. Now, referring to the federal lawsuit the city has filed against the state of New Jersey over the CREAM Act, while Scaloni had mentioned, quote, whether we agree or disagree with the federal law isn't relevant here, as we will keep the situation until the federal judge rules. Well, folks, here's what's interesting about this case. Now, listen, if you've been watching this program since April of 2019, you know that I am someone that's never smoked marijuana nor cares to ever do so. But again, I also understand the medicinal benefits of using marijuana, and of course, everything that's been debunked about the stigma that involves cannabis usage. Folks, people aren't committing violent crimes while smoking cannabis. People aren't stealing, merchandise in stores. They're not burglarizing homes. They're not carjacking people because of marijuana usage. So if anything, we've learned that more violent crimes are as a result of harder drug usage. But again, the stigma still remains. But again, not only as a journalist, but as an academic, I've read extensively about what cannabis usage represents. And certainly here in New Jersey, that's been the driving force behind, obviously, decriminalizing and ultimately the legalization of cannabis, which took place 4 years ago during the election of 2020. By an overwhelming margin, where 67% of New Jersey residents voted to legalize recreational cannabis. Now, certainly police officers have a very difficult job. I, for one, am one of the few journalists, if maybe the only one in New Jersey media, that is a staunch defender of law enforcement. Yes, I've walked around with Blue Lives Matter t-shirts, and I've also carried around Blue Lives Matter flags. And I'm someone that has been a staunch, endorser and supporter of law enforcement. Even 4 summers ago, when every woke fool and every social justice clown in Hudson County and New Jersey and around the country were all actively crying about defunding the police, when we all know, folks, that these spineless cowards would be the first ones to call the police during a summer barbecue because their neighbor's music was way too loud. But these are the same people that want to defund the police. Again, folks, it's hard to take the left seriously when they take such asinine positions. But back to the main story here. I've always been someone that supports law enforcement and understands, again, having worked in the criminal justice system for 10 years before transitioning to academia and journalism collectively, I understand the burden and the stress that they're under. I understand the pressures that men and women in our law enforcement agencies are put under on a daily basis, especially at a municipal level. Police officers have a tough job, folks. They have to deal with a rowdy public, again, now with motor scooters all over the place, with recreational cannabis all over the place while you're walking down Burger Line Avenue or Central Avenue in Jersey City or Broadway in Bayonne or Washington Street in Hoboken. You can't help but really, it's hard to avoid that insufferable stench of marijuana that seems to be permeating on every city block. But again, folks, I'm not someone that wants to be punitive against marijuana users. As much as I make fun of potheads in New Jersey, especially those in establishment media, like Matt Freeman and Jay Lassiter, I do understand that some do need to use marijuana recreationally and in some cases medicinally. Now, again, I don't know what the stories are with these specific officers, but I think what Jersey City is doing, I think, is, a little bit hypocritical. And the reason I say that is because, listen, this entire time that marijuana has been legalized, both Mayor Fulop and Democrats, which again control the legislature, could have been actively working with our federal legislators, both the United States senators and of course all 12 members of the House of Representatives, to perhaps reconsider rescheduling marijuana. But of course, like anything else, if it's not convenient, why do it? And while many on the left and while many establishment Democrats in Trenton and in Washington want to make you believe that they care about you, they really don't. Yes, states have gone about decriminalizing marijuana and in many cases taxing it and using the profits from its sales to benefit roads, to insert more money into school budgets or into state spending. Now, of course, do we trust Trenton to spend money responsibly? Of course not. We've seen the budgets in Trenton get fatter than the latest Victoria's Secret models. Okay? But again, let me not digress. When we look at marijuana usage, yes, is there a concern about law enforcement officers using it? Sure. But folks, let's be honest. The same people that are advocating against this are the same people that don't have a problem with officers drinking heavily off duty. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, but I can tell you that I've read enough literature to tell you that marijuana stays in your system longer than alcohol does. But for whatever reason, and we all know, folks, whether it's police officers or firefighters, again, brave men and women who have a very difficult job, we all know that occasionally they'll go out for drinks with their colleagues. Now, I'm not saying by any means that police officers and firefighters are reporting to work drunk, that they're reporting to duty while still, impaired because of alcohol. No one's saying that. But folks, again, there still exists this stigma when it comes to marijuana usage. Because folks, again, we all know who they are, right? We all know the locals that love to drink a little bit too much on the weekends, right? Regardless of the profession. And they'll show up to work the next day or the day after, maybe a little hungover, maybe, hopefully not drunk, right? But the point is that the stigma about alcohol doesn't really exist. But the stigma about marijuana does. And that's blatantly unfair. Now, let me preface this by saying, once again, folks, I don't have really a side to take in this fight. I don't smoke marijuana. I don't care to. I never will. It's not something that interests me. Okay? You want to know what my vices are? Women. That's my vice. Okay? But again, there's no need to decriminalize that vice whatsoever. Right? But when it comes to marijuana, there still exists this sort of perception that police officers and other professionals, teachers alike, shouldn't be using it off duty. Now, again, if the city of Jersey wants to follow laws and say that, listen, they can't carry their service firearms while on duty, fine, that's the case. But for Mayor Fuller, for a guy that's running for governor, I would venture to say that one aspect of his platform should be, hey, if you elect me to be governor of the state of New Jersey, I'm going to make sure that I go to Washington and avidly campaign for decriminalizing or rescheduling this drug at a federal level, because that's what governors do, right? They work with federal legislatures. They work with, the president of the United States to try to get this done. Now, again, as I suspect, in less than 35 days, the 45th president will become the 47th president. And we'll see whoever's governor in 2025 will be working with, obviously, the soon-to-be president, Donald J. Trump. But this is something, folks, that I think sort of even transcends national politics, because at the local level, there still exists that stigma. As I mentioned before, these three officers have been through hell and back. And despite the CREAM Act that has made it very, very clear about them not being marginalized or ostracized, that still happened. And in a time when it's hard to recruit police officers, when it's in a time when, again, progressives and the left are still demonizing law enforcement whenever they can, it's hard to be a cop these days. Not just for recruitment purposes, but to keep you on the force altogether. So again, I commend these three officers for sticking to their guns and, so to speak, and of course, sticking with it and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm glad that they're back on duty. Now, when they get their firearm back out in the field, that remains to be seen. And I get it that many people were criticizing Mayor Fulop for saying, hey, listen, we'll take the fines. Well, it's easy when it's not your money, Stephen. And of course, if taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill for that large fine, well then, okay, at some point, somebody probably got your attention. Now, I don't claim to have the answers to all this, but I can tell you that these officers were wrongfully targeted and ostracized. Now, whether or not they get to go back in the field in their regular capacity, who knows? And we'll see again as 2024 continues, well into 2025. But I can tell you, folks, whoever's running for governor, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, I think it would really, really benefit you to address this issue at the state level. Many voters have family members in law enforcement. Many voters have family members that are union members, whether it's the state police, the state PBA, or the FOP. You want a winning issue? Work on, again, getting to Trenton and then working with those in Washington to make sure that we reschedule marijuana and take it off the Schedule 1 list that it's on currently. Now, whether it's Stephen Fulop that's doing that, or a Democrat, or Republican in Trenton becoming governor, well, that remains to be seen. But I'll tell you right now, that's a winning issue. And at a time when everything seems to be so polarized, I think it's pretty fair to say this is an issue that everybody can rally around. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, some local news for your consideration. And let's head to Union City, where, folks, I got to tell you, learning about the death of Olympian Otis Davis at the age of 92 really, really hit home for me. Now, Otis Davis was a champion in the 400 meters and the 4x400 relay in the 1960 Olympics. And he's been a longtime supporter of scholastic sports in Union City. Now, his alma mater, the University of Oregon, recently announced his passing. Now, Davis was the first ever Olympic gold medalist from Oregon's track and field team, and they helped ultimately establish the United Olympians Achievement Award for Union City students who excel in academics, athletics, creative and artistic endeavors, as well as community service and conduct. Now, back in 2012, Davis had told one of the local news sites, I want to help prolong the Olympic ideals that I believe in. Now, the Union City resident organized an annual Mayor's Cup competition, which featured a number of athletic events for kids and teens, and also hosted sports challenges for special needs students. Quote, I'd like for the families to be involved with these children back at Family Fun Fest in 2014. These are exceptional students, and anything we can do to help these families be close-knit and believe in each other and do things for each other, I'm all for it. He felt his mission was to reach out and help young athletes, and obviously he felt that was an obligation for any Olympian. Now, Davis grew up in a segregated Alabama in the 1930s and 40s, unable to attend the nearby University of Alabama because it didn't allow black students until 1963. He served 4 years in the U.S. Air Force before joining Oregon's Ducks as a 26-year-old freshman, initially showing up to Eugene on a basketball scholarship. He saw the track and field team working out through his dorm room window and decided to give it a try. That choice paid dividends as 2 years later he became a two-time gold medalist and the first man in history to break 45 seconds in the 400-meter race. Now, Davis was inducted into the University of Oregon Hall of Fame in 1992 and the National Track and Field Hall of Fame in 2003. In 2016, the Jersey Journal included him on Hudson County's 30 most famous sports figures. Folks, I have to tell you, as someone who admires Otis Davis and his contributions, what we really forget about was contributions to the Union City School District. Not just only working as a disciplinarian, but also working as an attendance officer. Otis Davis touched every single life he came across. He was a man of dignity, integrity, and really a man of just a lot of grace and humility. I'll tell you right now, if I won 2 gold medals, man, you would hear about it every single day. But I got to tell you, that wasn't Otis Davis, folks. A humble young man, grew up in the South, during a very difficult time to be a black man. But he went to the University of Oregon, and the rest is history. And you know what? He made history. And he was quite an American. He was quite a hero and quite an Olympian. And when we think about those that are not just under the national spotlight or even the international spotlight, guess what? What he was most grateful for was being in the local spotlight and helping students, helping teachers, helping administrators really make a difference in the lives of Union City School District children. And that's something that, you know what, pretty much goes under the radar when it comes to Otis Davis. There's a lot to brag about when it comes to him, and why not? He's earned every bit of it. But I can tell you, the one thing we should always brag about was what such a decent human being that Otis Davis was. Not just to his alma mater, not just to the U.S. Olympic team, but to the Union City School District, where he made such a difference in the lives of kids every day. And it's still being felt in 2024. My condolences go out to his family, and certainly my prayers go out to anyone affected by the death of Otis Davis, an incredible Olympian, an incredible American, but more importantly than any of that, just an incredible human being. Otis Davis was 92 at the time of his passing. Now, here's an interesting editorial to dissect from the Jersey City Times, and a special thank you to its editor-in-chief, Aaron Morrill, for this publication. Very interesting title, Rage Against Machine Fulop, for anyone that really enjoys good alternative music or even heavy metal to some extent. Rage Against the Machine was quite the band in its day. I got to tell you, if you haven't listened to them, go on YouTube. Trust me, you won't regret it. But Morrill goes on to write, when Mayor Stephen Fulop was elected in 2013, many believed that the bad old days of machine politics had come to an end. As the feisty independent councilman from Ward E in downtown, he had led the opposition to a mayor and city council that marched in lockstep, often ignoring the sentiment of their constituents. When he successfully led an effort to enact New Jersey's most stringent pay-to-play ordinance, most reformers envisioned a future mayor who would relegate self-interested bossisms and machine politics to a thing of the past. How wrong they were. The recent city council meeting voted to grant $150 million over a 30-year tax abatement to Kushner Real Estate, the KRE, and that was just the latest example of Fulop's underlings rubber stamping legislation inimical to the interest of Jersey City residents. Welcome to machine politics, Generation X style. City Hall watchers had already grown accustomed to a city council majority that blindly signed off on millions in real estate giveaways, quote, the water tax, frivolous litigation, consultants, and questionable budgets. But the recent announcement that the New Jersey Supreme Court now wants to review the gerrymandering of Ward F by the Fulop-controlled Jersey City Ward Commission was one more reminder of Machine Fulop's malign work. But Wednesday marked a new low for the indifference the Machine Fulop has to democracy and good governance. For over 3 hours on Wednesday, a long line of Jersey City residents pleaded with the city council not to move ahead with the costly abatement, which had been sprung on residents just weeks earlier. But by a vote of 6-3, quote, Team Phillip went ahead and did it anyway, giving away $250 million that speaker after speaker said would be better spent on a long list of pressing needs like infrastructure, which they're right about, parks, absolutely, housing, now more than ever, rec centers, and better city services. It made no difference to Phillip's council enablers that the Pompidou numbers didn't work and that the mayor had blatantly lied about its funding, its operations, with $67.5 million in non-existent tax credits. It made no difference to them that the city already had 2 buildings in Journal Square with no plan for their use, or that it had already wasted $12 million on the first, quote, abandoned plan for Pompidou X. It made no difference to them that the city would need to dump another $100 million into the white, quote, white box KRE would turn over before it could house a single Chagall or Kandinsky. It made no difference to them that Phillip was pushing this scheme not because anyone ever asked for it, but as an ego-driven resume builder. And it made no difference to them that this gift to rich developers and an ambitious mayor on his way out would make it a $250 million harder for the city to address its real needs. Now, the most depressing part of this is that the 6 city council members who voted for this financial albatross didn't have to. In another year, their patron who has bullied them into submission will be gone. But ultimately, the perks of machine membership and a desire to avoid crossing a famously mean and vindictive chief executive won the day. Machine Phillip lives on. Folks, I got to tell you, very interesting column there, an editorial by Aaron Morrell. Well, folks, let me just say this. As someone who is always about fiscal responsibility, again, folks, I'm a conservative, and that's one of my staples when it comes to my brand of conservatism. I'm always about fiscal responsibility. But this is a case where Jersey City is not being fiscally responsible. Now, I get it that there were some agreement between the state and the city of Jersey City back when Governor Murphy and Mayor Stephen Phillip were on good terms. But we all know that went to hell when Mayor Phillip rescinded his endorsement of his wife, Tammy Murphy, during the contentious U.S. Senate primary earlier this year, and decided to endorse U.S. Representative in the 3rd Congressional District, Andy Kim. Needless to say, folks, that Pompidou isn't necessary. And we know that mayoral candidate and former governor himself, Jim McGreevey, has come out against the Pompidou project. And why not? It's just millions and millions of dollars that don't need to be spent on this. As residents went to the microphone for their allotted 5 minutes during the public speaking portion, they're right. They do need more housing in Jersey City. There needs to be better infrastructure. Perhaps maybe working with New Jersey Transit to expand the light rail services in Jersey City, right? Isn't Jersey City overly congested with cars? Isn't that what the left and progressives and climate hysterics are always bitching and moaning about? All right, well, roll up your sleeves and put your money where your mouth is, okay? Take that money and work with New Jersey Transit to expand the light rail system, to expand bus routes, okay? But the idea that, listen, of an artistic center in the middle of Journal Square, it just isn't necessary. And in a city where parking is, quite frankly, so scarce, when services for seniors, when the school budgets are getting fatter once again than the latest Victoria's Secret models modeling lingerie, Jersey City's priorities are once again misplaced. Now, I get it that Steve Phillip is running for governor. And the crowd, and the field's going to get very crowded very soon, with both U.S. representatives, Mikey Sherrill and Josh Steinheimer, probably and most likely joining the race a little after they get reelected on November the 5th. Certainly, Newark Mayor Ross Baraka, NGA President Sean Spiller, and former State Senate President Steve Sweeney already occupy the field along with Steve Phillip. So that field's going to get very crowded very quickly with very different types of Democrats. Folks, I don't know about you, but why is Mayor Phillip taking on this fight? And I get that the Jersey City Times and Mayor Phillip have been at odds with each other for years now. But it doesn't mean that this column's wrong, okay? It means that, quite frankly, money like this needs to be better appropriated. I grew up in Hudson County my whole life. I know what Journal Square looked like. And yes, was it in need of repairs and urbanization or revitalization? Certainly, okay? I've taught at Hudson County Community College in the Journal Square campus. I know what it looks like. It doesn't look like that anymore. It's pricing Jersey City residents out. And I get it. When housing is at a premium and really at a scarcity because it's getting too expensive to live in New York, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, or wherever, yeah, they're filtering down into Jersey City. And the downtown is becoming too expensive. You got to go up the road on Newark Avenue and go to Journal Square. Even that's becoming too expensive for lifelong Jersey City residents. So when hundreds of millions of dollars are being pumped into the arts in a building like that, folks, I love the arts like anybody else. I love going to Manhattan for Broadway shows and off-Broadway shows. I love supporting music. I go to festivals all the time. I support local musicians. Again, the arts is not my problem. The problem is fiscal irresponsibility, and that's what's going on in Jersey City. Folks, it is October, and it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And throughout this month, I'll be not just promoting the American Cancer Society, but also plugging my event coming up on Saturday night, October the 19th. So mark it on your calendars for the 2024 edition of A Professor's Quest to Save Breasts, which will take place at Ventanas at the Modern, which is located at 200 Park Avenue in Fort Lee. It's accessible via the George Washington Bridge for all my friends across the river in New York, and certainly Route 4, Route 3, the Parkway, and Turnpike collectively are all nearby and accessible to Ventanas at the Modern in Fort Lee. Folks, we're asking for a suggested donation of $20 at the door. There'll be plenty of raffles, of course, incredible music by DJ David Jones, and I'll be joined by my outstanding co-hosts, Vladimir Carrero, Emily Amato, and Jacqueline Rodriguez. We'll be partying with you all night long in raising money to benefit the American Cancer Society and, more importantly, making strides against breast cancer. So again, you can check out the flyer that's provided there. And of course, for more information, check me out on all my social media handles, reach out to me, and I'll let you know how you can get involved with the Professor's Quest to Save Breasts. Once again, folks, all proceeds that evening will benefit the American Cancer Society and making strides against breast cancer. Together, folks, we can defeat breast cancer once and for all. And that's our show for this week. Once again, to check out all the exceptional programming brought to you by the leader in independent media here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, please visit their YouTube page, as well as make sure you like them on Facebook and also follow them on Instagram and Twitter. Don't forget to check out my own social media handles, folks, there on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter collectively. And of course, reach out to me at any time if any issues or topics that I'm not covering that you feel that I should. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier 10-time award-winning journalist. Top Latino was voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, because my level of honesty, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. That's right, folks. It is the generational talent in journalism, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, folks. Once again, enjoy October. Halloween's right around the corner. Enjoy the baseball playoffs. The NBA and NHL return soon enough. And of course, the NFL is well underway. Folks, enjoy those games. Please gamble responsibly, folks. We all love our parlays. We all love betting the over-under. We all love betting point spreads. But now more than ever, folks, please gamble responsibly. Not just during the NFL, but the MLB playoffs, as well as the NBA and NHL. Remember, bet with your head and not over it. And I'll see you next time here on Talking Politics with the Hudson Media Group. I'm Fernando Uribe, folks. Always remember, thanks for stopping by. Now more than ever, stay classy, everyone.